Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this latest video. This video today is about the Cinnamon desktop continually crashing after the end of January 2019 update. So this will probably affect only Linux Mint users, although the desktop can be used elsewhere. It was probably just the Linux Mint users. So what's the problem? What's happening? And how can we fix it? The culprit is one of 3 updates which have come from Ubuntu. There were, I believe, 96, I can't remember, there might have been 98 updates in total. So there were quite a lot of updates. Some came from Linux Mint themselves and some came from Ubuntu. Now, I've included the Grub 2 because although this is very unlikely to be causing the crashes, it is actually causing a different problem at times on boot up, in that the boot up screen, the Grub screen, is actually showing for about 20 seconds before booting into Linux Mint. According to the message boards, it's the Mesa update which is causing the problems, but nobody seems to have done a definitive test on that. I've included the Ubuntu drivers common because they include the NVIDIA drivers. Now, this is on a virtual machine, and the base machine is actually running an NVIDIA graphics card. Although the virtual machine graphics are not NVIDIA, the base machine is. Now, I have put this update on other laptops which have not got the NVIDIA driver, and to date I haven't had a problem. But the first thing is that you must, and this is essential, you must have Timeshift on, and you must have done a Timeshift update before you start these 96 updates. As you can see, we're running Linux Mint 19. It's a test machine that I've test virtual machine that I've actually created for this, and you can see the 3 updates that we have left. So normally you don't see the level. Now, if you are going to do the update, what I recommend you do is click on View, click on Visible Columns, and put a tick in Level. This will show you the level. Then you can actually sort by level, remove the ticks from all the level 4, because the others are level 1 and level 2. Do the updates, which should be fine, absolutely fine, and then you can decide whether you want to do the level 4 updates later. If you are using Terminal to do the updates, you're probably too late because you don't get to see the levels, and it will have just done upgrade and put everything on, and you're probably in this trouble. So you're going to need Timeshift to take it back. Now you can see I've done a Timeshift today just after lunch, and I'm doing these manually because this is a test machine which I simply just use for testing purposes to catch these sorts of problems. One thing about Timeshift that you might be interested in is that it takes approximately 15 gig of disk space, depending on exactly what's on your system, but around about 15 gig, between 12 and 15, it depends on your system. So if you are using a virtual machine, remember to add an extra 15 gig or 16 gig to the disk space when you're creating it, so that you've got space for the Timeshift files. According to the message boards, the one that is causing the problem is the Mesa one. So let's do the install. I've removed the ticks from the other 2. So we've just got Mesa, so we will install the update. And it's found some other packages it needs. Authenticate. And this might take a moment or 2. So what we'll do is we'll come back once it's finished doing its update. that looks to be the package installed. So what we will do now is we will do a reboot just to make sure that the drivers get loaded correctly and see if it crashes. One of the problems when loading the grub2 update was you would get to this point approximately here and it would stop for 20 seconds or until you press the appropriate button. So that's one of the reasons why I haven't actually installed the grub2 update just yet. Now I have noticed that on some occasions it stops and causes the problem, and on other occasions it doesn't. So not too sure why it's doing that at the moment. The other is that here I'm running Oracle's VirtualBox virtual machine 6.0.4, I think it is, and you notice that it kept resizing the window as it was starting up. The old 5.26, I think it was, didn't used to do that. So if anybody knows a way of stopping that, I would be grateful. The other thing is that in View, we now have the auto resize guest display, which sometimes doesn't always show. So I've noticed this, that if you had it set to the SVGA drivers, this did not show, but if it's set to the VGA, it does show. So that may be one of the problems. Okay, this is booting up. We'll know what's what when this icon here actually shows correctly. If it's going to crash, the screen usually goes black and then comes back up again with the crash. Interesting, because this is the first time I've had any serious problems with Linux Mint in the years I've been using it. Ooh. How many years is it? Probably about 3 years, something like that, that I've been using it. And this is the first time that I've had problems. And it's a good thing they brought out time shift, because without it, this would have caused a lot of problems, because there isn't really an easy way to go back to the previous and remove the new drivers and load the old drivers on unless you've got time shift. So time shift, yes, here we go. So it was the Mesa drivers. We're nearly 100% sure of that now because it's just crashed. If I click on yes, it should look like it's restarting. Cinnamon, and then it will probably crash again. So it does look like it's these Mesa drivers. If it does this, you've got, and you don't have time shift, you do actually have only a couple of options. So it will just continually keep crashing if I press yes. So I'm going to click on no, and what you get is you get a basic desktop, and if I click on the menu, you'll see that the menu is very much the Mate style menu. It's a very basic one. So what we now need to do is use time shift to go back to the previous settings. As I say, if you don't have time shift, you are in this state. You don't really have a choice because the Cinnamon desktop will just keep crashing. So you will have to use Linux Mint in this form as it's looking now until they release a fix for that Mesa driver. So click on time shift and of course authenticate. As you can see, I did one about an hour ago. Click on restore. Now it'll ask you some questions. If you just have the one device, which is what most people actually have, you just click on yes. It will now do a dry run. Now this takes a few minutes, and what I'll do is I'll come back once it's finished doing the dry run and show you what happens next, so you've got some idea of what time shift is doing. Just very quickly, you can see where the changes are. So far it's found 413, 384 with different timestamps, 28 with a different size, and 1 with a different checksum. So oops, yes, it's just increased right at the very end. As I say, it's just about finished doing the dry run. and now you have to confirm the actions. So it's actually going to tell you what it's going to do. So click on next. You have this disclaimer because of course the system might not run afterwards. I've not had a problem with this, and I've done this maybe 10 or 15 times in the last 2 days, so I'm quite happy to click next, and you'll get this black screen, and quite simply TimeShift will put all your files back and then automatically reboot when it's finished. So I hope you found that useful. As you can see, it's putting the files back. I hope you found that useful. So when you're installing the latest set of updates from Ubuntu, make sure that the mesa update is not ticked, and use the update system from within Linux Mint, not from terminal. Do not use the terminal one unless you know how to stop certain updates from being installed. I hope you found that useful. My name's John, and I'll see you next time. Okay, just to show you very quickly, TimeShift has just finished restoring, and it's just rebooted the computer, or the virtual machine, as I say. We're back into that. I'm just waiting for it to set up. There does always seem after using TimeShift that you need to wait a moment or two before the system knows, so it comes back to normal. So if we click on the update manager, you'll see the mesa one is there, and I shall untick that. It says it can be safely removed as well, which is very good. I like that idea. So we can actually ignore updates for this package or whatever. Okay, so it looks like we just need to install those two, so I shall install those. Okay, thank you for watching.